Welcome to the Creepin' It Real show, your one-stop shop for weird news, spooky, otherworldly, and paranormal shenanigans. We'll take a dive into what's going on in creepy pop culture. You can follow us on Twitter at creepin_it and like us on Facebook at the Creepin' It Real show. Do you have a paranormal story you'd like to share with us? You can email us at creepinitrealshow@gmail.com. All right, welcome to Creepin' It Real. Here's our Halloween edition. I'm super excited because I absolutely love all things Halloween, as do my cohorts. Speaking of, we got Moni from the West Coast coming in. How are you?
I am good for 8 in the morning, but other than that, I've got a mimosa in hand and I'm ready to do this thing.
Nice. And we've also got right down the road, Yardley. How are you this morning, Yardley?
Hey, I'm doing great. It's a great morning here. It's actually starting to feel like fall finally here in Georgia, but I'm excited to talk about a few Halloween topics.
Me too. And fall, hello. I let my dog out this morning. It's freaking cold out there. There's no what happened? It went from warm to 30-something degrees. I'm like, we've sort of skipped a little bit of the fall season, but I'll take it. I love it. I just put on, that's why we're a little late, I just put on a huge crock pot of red beans and ham, and I'm going to make rice and some cornbread, and I haven't had it in 20 years, so I'm super excited. I've never made it. I've always eaten my mom's, so I had to find a recipe, and I'm going to give it a shot.
I bet she didn't use a crock pot.
She absolutely did.
But good try trying to throw that shade there.
I know.
She made it from scratch.
I was definitely trying to throw it hardcore. That sounds good, though. I guess you're going to plan on sleeping the rest of the day.
Pretty much after eating that. Well, it takes 6 hours apparently. And that's the thing I hate about crock pots, because I have no patience. I put something in there and I want it to cook. I want it to cook right now and I want to eat it in 30 minutes. So yeah, I am not a good crock potter. And
you should have put it on before you went to a party last night. It would be ready.
I know. I'm not a good planner. I am a horrible planner, which is why apologizing in advance, people, that this podcast was literally thrown together because it's my week for the topic, and that's what happens. I thrive on chaos. I don't know. What else can I say? So I've got my Bloody Mary in hand, and my dude discovered the Scream channel on Sirius, and he's been playing it all morning. So I've either been listening to creepy clowns, little girls singing, circus music, and all kinds of shit this morning. So I'm really not something I wanted to wake up to, but it's got him in the Halloween mood, and he's rewiring all our outside speakers to this music to scare the shit out of the kids when they come trick-or-treating. So,
That is perfect. I had the shit scared out of me by my 4-year-old yesterday because I was on the treadmill, which, first of all, running on purpose is scary. And secondly, I was daydreaming about my Halloween costume for Tuesday at work. We were told to improve staff morale by coming dressed up. And the only thing I could think of that was easy in this short time frame was there is a yellow rain slicker that hangs by the back door.
Nice.
That is supposed to be for the security guard to use when it's raining. And so I decided to be Georgie this year at work. And so I'm going to go to the dollar store and grab a red balloon and just walk around work. I'm also going to bring the arm portion in because it's nice and roomy in there, and be a Georgie without the arm. And I think that's just going to be the perfect literary pop culture tie-in costume for a Tuesday at work.
That will be awesome. We're going to go get, the night before Halloween, a bunch of red balloons from the dollar store and tie them on all the gutters in our neighborhood just to really freak everybody out.
So what exactly is the night that parents do the trick-or-treating thing with their kids? Is that tomorrow? I mean, tonight or what?
No, that'll be Tuesday night. I am probably going to try to take off early if I can on Tuesday. Oh, yeah, that's the part of the story that I forgot to tell. So I was on the treadmill thinking about that and thinking about how creepy little kids are. You were just saying, Christy, about you were listening to little kids. And all of a sudden I hear, "Hi, Mama." And I almost fell off the treadmill at a full run because my kid was behind me and I have the world's oldest, loudest treadmill. So I did not hear her coming up the stairs. But,
nice.
Yeah. So Tuesday night, and our little neighborhood, our little suburban utopia here goes pretty big for Halloween. So the parents all kind of dress up with the kids and walk around. And I like it because I'm super nosy. So I will be going to check out how everybody decorates their houses for the rest of the year too. Get some nice Martha Stewart living ideas. And probably my cool next door neighbor that I've just started becoming friends with will hand me one of those to-go cups of skinny margarita, and we will take a neighborhood walk with our babies. So it'll be fun.
Yeah, our subdivision is small. It's like 80 houses. And it's not well known. Not many people even know there is a subdivision here. And so we only get trick-or-treaters from our neighborhood. And we used to have it where the Halloween party was right in front of our house because it's one of the cul-de-sacs in the neighborhood and it's towards the back. And it was always, the Halloween party was always there. Well, you know, as time goes, different people take over the, you know, homeowner responsibilities, which one of them is parties, and they moved it. And so for about 10 years, we had the party right in front of our house, and we always had this, you know, tried to have pretty scary decorations, and then we would take the kids really quick around the neighborhood to get their candy, and then we'd all come back and party at my house. Well, now my kids don't, well, Jay trick-or-treats still. He's 12. Madeline is too cool now at 15 and refuses to trick-or-treat or dress up, which I get, I remember. And so we don't have to worry about who's manning the house, who's going with the kids. Jay can go by himself and trick-or-treat, and Madeline's not doing it. So Rick's going to man the door this year, and I'm going to a real witches party hosted by a real witch. It's women only, and it's only people that are quote-unquote sensitive or, you know, are Wiccans or whatever. And we're going to do a witches circle and everything. And everybody has to dress up as a witch. So I'm going as a Celtic witch. I'm super stoked. I've always wanted to do it, but kids. So this year I got the invite again, even though I've never been able to go. And I'm like, I'm going. I don't give a shit. I'm going. And so I got my costume, and I'm so excited.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, I'm stoked. So. And then I leave on Thursday to Seattle to see my little nephew, Oliver. So I can't wait. So I'll be doing our show next week from Seattle.
Nice.
Oh, cool.
What are you going to do, Yardley? I know you don't got no kids. So what do you do? What does a man do on Halloween?
That he knows of.
Yeah. Well.
I would.
We did talk about plenty costumes for him last week. So
well,
sorry.
That is true. I would probably make a concerted effort to know, but that depends on what I'm drinking.
Right,
now, for me personally, the Halloween parties that were happening that I was invited to took place on Saturday night. But here on Saturday night, it was rainy and it was cold. So I abstained from going out, and I just kind of had some libations, you know, at the house. I watched the Georgia, the Georgia-Florida game, you know, and I just kind of relaxed. But the weather and the distance that I would have had to drive to enjoy a decent Halloween party would have been, you know, the Kennesaw, and the police were out a little bit last night.
They
were.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just decided to, you know, to kick back, and I'm pretty sure that I'll enjoy looking at you and Moni's photos of how much awesome fun that you had. But I was kind of a lame last night. Oh, and I was watching Stranger Things season 2 as well.
Haven't started.
So I was going to ask you, are you liking it so far?
You know what? I don't like it as much as the first season.
Oh, no.
I think that they're trying to do a little bit too much, but it's you know, it'll be great to talk about once you two have kind of gone through it. I'm very curious. At
How many episodes in are you? Are you done?
I am actually on episode 8. There are 9 episodes this season.
Oh, wow.
So one more than last year. So I'm about to wrap it up.
Wow.
But yeah, it'll be fun though.
I got hooked on this. What sucks about Netflix, which is also glorious, is, they release all their episodes at once. Well, now I've got Stranger Things to deal with, and I'm in the middle of, which isn't on Netflix, but Outlander, which I am totally hooked on because I've been reading that series since I was a sophomore in high school. I literally grew up with this story. So now that they, turned it into a show, I'm just obsessed
when you
with
were
it.
drunk last week, you said you never read any books ever. That just made me laugh because you were also talking about reading it and reading Outlander.
I don't remember anything I said last week. First of all, I'm so embarrassed.
You loved it.
I haven't even listened to the entire show because I can't. I'm not listening to this shit. This is ridiculous. But it's also helped me go, you're ridiculous when you're wasted. So I'm going to make a concentrated effort to never be wasted either. Because how annoying. Like, I don't want to listen to that. So if I don't want to listen to it, Rick doesn't want to listen to it. Nobody else in the world wants to listen to it either. So I was like, well, that was a good cure for getting wasted. But
let's hope that any new listeners start off with this episode or the episode before, prior to that. Yeah.
I used to read all the time, and for some reason this year I have not read not one book, and that's so unusual for me. I usually read all the time. I can read a book in like 3 or 4 hours. I'm a speed reader. And I just haven't. I have books sitting here and I haven't picked any of them up. And so it's bizarre and I don't know what happened. Maybe I just need to force myself because I'm really pushing my kids to read and here I am not reading. So kind of a hypocrite. But
join the Goodreads challenge, cut on notifications, and they will worry the fuck out of you about reading a book.
Oh, Lord. I already have that with my bike app. I don't need another guilt-ridden app making me feel like shit all the time because I have a bike app that map my ride and they always send me notifications about joining all these challenges. And I'm like, I have my bike on a trainer inside the house so that I can ride it inside, which is awesome, but it doesn't track on my app. So it's worthless for the app. Doesn't give a shit if I'm riding my bike in the house. It wants to see, road miles. So I'm like, screw you. I'm doing just as good, in my house as I could be outside. It's freaking cold out there. I'm not riding a bike out there. So anyway, well, let's go on over. So we decided to do the show about Halloween-ish things, the history of Halloween, facts about Halloween, maybe some stuff that we like or what's happened to us that's scary or is near Halloween. And we're also going to talk about haunted objects this episode, which I am completely fascinated with. I don't know about anybody else, but I love watching the shows based on haunted objects, like Evil Things. I don't know if anybody's watching that on, I think it's on TLC, or maybe it's on the Destination Channel. I don't know, but I have it recorded because I never watch anything live anymore. And all it is either about haunted houses or things that are haunted. So if you're interested in stuff like that, definitely better check it out. But so Halloween is probably one of my favorite holidays. Would you guys say it's your favorite holiday, or would you say, you deal with it?
Well, the spectacle is definitely heightened on Halloween. So it's always fun to see who has taken their costumes more seriously than others. And also it's just kind of a night that I think throughout your lives, people have put a lot of hype behind, but it's definitely a fun holiday. And it's actually one of the most celebrated as far as one of the most celebrated holidays around the world. Everybody has their own types of Halloween-esque things inserted in their culture. So, and we'll definitely talk about that because actually in my segment, I'm going to talk about the top 10 countries that celebrate Halloween. But it's always been pretty fun. I mean, I've probably gotten more involved in Halloween as far as being hype more than any other holiday.
Yeah. What about you, Moni?
Oh, outside of New Year's. Outside of New Year's.
Yeah, that's true. I think I know your answer, Moni, but I'll hear it from your mouth.
Well, by virtue of the fact that we do a creepy horror podcast, obviously I'm a fan from that perspective of the way that we celebrate in the modern times, which is, my husband and I will watch, we'll spend the day watching a movie marathon, well, when it's on the weekend anyway, of spooky movies, which we can't really do with the kids now because the big one gets freaked out by everything. And definitely, yeah, pre-kids, it was awesome. Pre-kids and kind of going to Comic-Cons, because the costume spectacle was a lot more fun when that wasn't a couple times a year that we actually either cosplay ourselves or see people doing it. It was more special anyway. Right. And knowing what candy does to the after baby body, that was more fun. And pre-children, I had more of a social life as far as being able to go to parties. And I'm hoping within the next 10 years or so, that sounds so long, I'll be able to do more of that kind of thing. But yeah, I agree with Yardley as far as it being celebrated more widely. And I like that it's not as commercialized, although we are going to talk a little bit about that. But in terms of buying gifts and shoving it down our throats, that's what she said. So yeah, it's still a good time, but it's one of the few holidays that, when you have kids, Christmas kind of becomes more special again in a way. Yeah. But when you have kids, at least at this point, when they're real little and afraid of everything, Halloween kind of loses its luster just a little.
Yeah, I think, I got 2 kids, and I'm at a different stage than you are. I've been through what you're going through. And I think, like you, I was a huge Halloween, fanatic growing up and in my early 20s. And of course I went through my whole slutty costume phase, and then really started to appreciate Halloween for what it was. And then, you have kids and everything changes. And I think, I would never dress up, but then I would dress my kids up in crazy elaborate costumes when they were babies. Like Jay was an octopus. Madeline was a Joker. She actually won photograph of the year from a photograph I took of her in her Joker costume when she was Jester, not Joker, Jester costume. And she was, I don't know, she was almost a year old. She looks absolutely adorable. And just dressing, and then I kind of transferred my excitement about Halloween into a different space, and made it about them for a little while. And now we're at the stage where we can claim it back and get really excited about scaring the shit out of kids, which I'm sure their parents aren't so excited about, but we've literally made kids run and cry from our house. And so whatever. I mean, it is what it is. But just a lot of people know so much about Christmas and the background, but I don't think a lot of people really know about where Halloween came from and its roots. And just a quick overview of that. As a Celtic person, it makes me totally excited to tell you that they believe, because it's existed for so long, that the Irish Celts, whatever you want to call them, created Halloween. They called it Samhain, and it's basically was a festival to mask themselves from spirits that were coming through a portal on Halloween. So they believed that on October 31st, or whatever it was, the calendar for them, was a time every year where the spirit world could walk amongst us. And so the trick was to wear something scary to mask yourself to be like spirits and to trick them into thinking that they were spirits. So that's how it all got started. And I mean, except for the candy and the slutty costumes and all the silliness that we've added, we still do that. I don't think people really know why. And the Celts were also the ones that invented the jack-o'-lantern. But they also used to carve them not just from pumpkins, but turnips, which if you look at a picture, and I'll post a link, they're creepy as fuck. Like if you see a turnip with a face on it, it doesn't look as fun as a pumpkin. So that's kind of the little back story of Halloween and why we do this. And then of course you've got the Mexican holiday I can't even say it. Day of the Dead, Dia dos Muertos. I can't talk.
Dia de los Muertos.
Dia los Muertos. I cannot talk in other languages in the morning time. But my stepmother is Mexican, and we celebrate that holiday as well. So it was really awesome to be able to add that to our calendar, and for a reason. I mean, I think it's kind of Day of the Dead has kind of become a big deal recently because we Americans love taking other people's holidays and another excuse to party, but it is a legit holiday for them. It's like Halloween, but they're more interested in when the dead go back, not when the dead show up. They don't want to hear about that. They want to hear about when it's time to say goodbye. So but anyway, so that's a quick little background on what Halloween is, what it stands for, why it's around, and why we do what we do. And of course, we've added the partying and the drinking and the candy and all the other shit. But I'll take it.
We had to Americanize it, right?
Absolutely.
So, and then there is the fact that in the more recent history that Halloween has become for pussies nowadays. And you can't even say pussies now without offending actual felines. So I'll say Halloween is for snowflakes now because as per this article that I found, in the 70s, Halloween was legit scary, more than just the costumes and the movies and the culture surrounding what we do to celebrate Halloween here. And the reasons were Halloween costumes, for instance, were considered highly flammable. So in 1971, the FDA issued a warning that parents should check their kids' costumes to make sure that they weren't flammable because kids were standing so close to jack-o'-lanterns. Can you imagine just chilling on the porch waiting for someone to bring you candy, and then next thing you know, you're on fire?
Well,
like you're just a little kid.
I gotta add into this because I was a child of the 70s, and I remember these costumes. I remember being a Tweety bird, and from
so cute.
Yeah, from Disney, or well, not Disney, but whatever the hell, the other cartoon.
Looney Tunes,
Looney
right?
Tunes, thank
you.
See, I can't, my brain doesn't work this early, but now what that consists of, and it's every single costume was like this in the 70s. It wasn't, it was literally the most polyester, cheap ass, pull-up jumpsuit that they could make in the whatever color scheme it was that you were being, and it had a plastic tie around your neck, and it was a whole jumpsuit, and every single costume was like this, with a plastic mask that went over your face with a rubber band that went around your head, and they were incredibly flammable. I mean, it was like tissue paper and polyester. I mean, they were ridiculous. And when I look at the costumes now and I see how far we've evolved, it cracks me up. And I didn't even know that look at your article before now, but I was thinking about this the other day, like how insanely cheap and dangerous and flammable and ugly were our costumes back in the 70s. It's like 70s couldn't just have ugly clothes in general. Oh no, they had to go into Halloween too. It's like, we're going to make everything cheap and flimsy and polyester for that decade. It's ridiculous. So I can attest to those nasty ass, gross Halloween costumes from the 70s.
Agreed. And I also want to jump in and kind of talk about some of the things that we were up against in the 70s and early 80s. And it's kind of funny these days, nobody thinks about or necessarily talks about how people were really putting razor blades in apples. That was one of the big things that was talked about, your mom, your grandma, hey, look out if you get the fruit, check the fruit, or just throw the fruit out. We were told just to throw it out, but there were people who were doing that, or they were putting razor blades inside the candy, perhaps maybe melting the candy, putting a razor blade in, covering it up, letting it harden, rewrapping it. So those things were pretty, I don't want to say prevalent, but they happened enough, especially in an age where we didn't have the internet or things like that. The word did get out that, hey, you need to check your stuff. People are doing this. So I always remember that. Definitely remember the cheap costumes with the cheap masks with the little rubber band behind it. It was horrendous. And we also did a lot more things alone. I think that when we went trick or treating, our parents weren't really rolling because we were in the neighborhood. So people were like, everybody knew each other and you kind of looked out. But I don't think we were necessarily burdened being chaperoned when I was really young.
I used to get on my bike when I was 6 years old and ride it, I don't know, 5 miles and bought my mom packs of cigarettes. Like they sold me cigarettes. And I would ride home on my bike and give them to her. And I absolutely went trick-or-treating by myself. And yeah, we would get these big caramel apples. And I remember it being on the news. This was when I lived in Houston. And that one, it wasn't my neighborhood. It was a neighborhood across town. There were razor blades in one of the caramel apples that this kid got. So I was reading articles this last week when I was looking through Halloween stuff, and they were saying, oh, the odds, that was just bullshit. That was myths. Those were urban legends. I'm like, no, they weren't. I lived through that. I remember it. I remember the hospitals offering free x-rays of your bag of candy. Like you would take your bags of candy and they would x-ray it. I can't imagine they would waste x-rays for free if that was an urban myth, So
That's
love
actually mentioned in this article
keep going. I'm sorry.
That's okay. It was mostly an urban myth, but it did originate with that actually happening. In 1971, someone put razor blades and pins actually into a little girl, an 8-year-old girl's apple. And it happened twice, actually, that is documented. And then someone also put crushed pills in 3 different kids' candy bars, also in 1971 in Long Island. So, while that became a hysteria that might happen more often, it definitely did happen a couple of times. And Yardley, what you were saying about people being unchaperoned, this article does talk about the helicopter parent effect that we have today, with kids doing more, having the church or the indoor trick-or-treating and having their parents come along. And yeah, it's just a whole different ballgame. Oh, and they had stopped having red M&Ms altogether because of the red dye, which actually wasn't even in red M&Ms, but people were so freaked out by it that they were just throwing those away. So yeah, there was some, and kids were allowed to, in the 1968 issue of Boy's Life, kids were actually allowed to and being encouraged to use carving knives and being told what techniques to use to carve real pumpkins. And of course I didn't even carve my first pumpkin until this past week. So that things have changed for sure. So yeah, Halloween is for snowflakes now. That's my report.
Well, as a parent who, my son's in Boy Scouts and he just participated in the trunk or treat they have here at the park. All the Boy Scouts came and, donated candy to their leader's trunk, and kids walk around with their parents and they trick or treat. This is for kids that don't have neighborhoods, that live around here and aren't comfortable with going outside of a neighborhood, or if they just wanted to participate as a kid. And the thing is, and maybe I sound ridiculous, but in Atlanta, we're like the top city for like sex trafficking and all this crap. I mean, kids disappear here and you never see them again. And so I am absolutely one of those parents that helicopter the shit out of my kids. I didn't do it when they were little. They were allowed to play outside. They were allowed to play around the neighborhood. But as they get more freedom and more, not responsibilities, I always say, where you get more permission to do things and go more places, you get more responsibilities. But our poor child, I'm surprised we haven't inserted a freaking chip in her, because it's scary out there. I mean, I grew up in a small town. It's a little different than Atlanta, and I ran around. I had Houston. I lived there till I was 6, and then I moved to small towns in New Mexico, Roswell being one, and it just wasn't like the cities. And so it's scary out there. And maybe because we grew up in the 70s and shit was crazy back then, and we didn't even have the internet like we do now, where we see everything and anything that happens. Just being like thinking back about stuff growing up, you know, riding around in the back of a pickup truck, no seat belts, no car, you know, no baby seats, no, you know, we, like I said, riding around on my bike all over the town, buying cigarettes for my mom. I used to ride a 3-wheeler around our town. It's just a whole different life now, whole different era of crazy. People are fucking crazy now. I mean, used to have a couple of crazy people here and there, but not anymore. Now you realize, dang, they're everywhere. So I get it. I know it probably makes me a snowflake, but hell yeah, I ain't gonna let my kid run around. I'm not gonna let him. I let him carve his own pumpkin. He's better with a knife than I am. He's a Boy Scout, for crying out loud. He makes his own fires. He can do a lot of shit, but he's not going to go outside this neighborhood for trick-or-treating. Absolutely not. You know, I'll take him somewhere. And he went, you know, to the park, but that's it. That's I draw the line there. And my daughter, hell no. You know, I let her go to the mall, walk around, but you know, she wanted to walk from high school to a friend of hers house the other day. I'm like, when she told me whose friend's house it was, I was like, are you out of your fucking mind? No, you're not walking to her house. Like, that's too far. You can go to the coffee shop a couple of blocks away or something, but you're not walking, you know, over a mile to somebody's house. Not where we live. You can't do that. It's not like it was before. So it sucks, but it is what it is. And, you know, I don't know. And I'm from the 70s. I lived through all that. So you'd think I'd be like, oh, it's not as bad as what I went through, but I'm the total opposite. So, yeah, I guess we're all pussies. I don't know. But anyway, all right. So, Yardley, you want to talk about the top 10 countries that celebrate Halloween, right? I looked at your list. It's a good list.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to do a quick rundown of the countries and a little brief synopsis of what they celebrate. And at the end, it would be cool to hear if any of these countries would be an interesting destination for either of you to maybe celebrate at least once in your life. So seeing as we talked about Mexico earlier, the Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead, it pretty much starts on October the 31st and goes a couple days after that. It ends on November the 2nd. And they seem to really have their stuff together when it comes to celebrating Halloween. And the next country will be Ireland.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's called Samhain Night. It's a medieval Irish festival of Samhain that marks the end of harvest and bringing the shorter days and the darker half of the year. And there's some pretty cool activities that they have going on. I think they have the Salem Witch Museum, so that's always the possibility of a great jump off for Halloween. The United States of America, say no more, Salem, Massachusetts, New Orleans, New York, and Los Angeles. Surprisingly enough, they have a Day of the Dead celebration. So, Moni, is that something that you've ever taken part in?
I have not. I am just far enough away to where we say we try to stay out of there as much as we can. Okay. But but I would like to do something like that perhaps. And we definitely, our proximity here in San Diego area to Mexico, we do a lot of Dia celebrations around the area though.
Okay, well, and London, you've got the London Ghost Walk, the Jack the Ripper Walk, the Dungeons, the London Eye. They have a lot of things going on, and pretty much the rest of England. I mean, everybody has a jump off there. I really think that for me, I'm going to go ahead and make my pick now. I would love to go back to London and do the London and the Jack the Ripper Walk.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, that was something that I didn't even consider when I was there last year. But I was so, oh my God, I was so blind the whole time that it was just like, you know what, Big Ben, that's cool when we partied the rest of the time. But I would definitely like to go back to the UK and celebrate. Now we've got Colombia. They have a lot of their festivals are influenced a lot by the things that we do here in the United States. Bangkok, They have a lot of street bars and restaurants and clubs and have this big street party. So that seems like that would be the move. Hong Kong, you already know that they're going to have some type of a jump off. Romania, Dracula, enough said. And then Syria and the Middle East, they do have certain types of celebrations for, they call it St. Barbara's Day. So they do a little celebrating over there as well. I would be kind of curious. I don't think that that would be my selection. I'm probably going to stick with London. But starting with you, Moni, do any of these places interest you as far as somewhere to celebrate?
Well, I don't know if I've ever mentioned this before, but my family, my maiden name is Maturina, and we have a little town named after us in Mexico. So that would be super fun. I've always wanted to go there. It's not considered the safest thing to do for a little gringa girl from Southern California to go. But that would be super fun to go actually out to Maturina, Sonora, Mexico, and celebrate Day of the Dead. Y'all know by now that I have a mild obsession with Jack the Ripper. So the London Walk that you mentioned sounds amazing as well. I just have a great interest in traveling in general. So honestly, if you're going to send me on a free trip, I will do any one of the things mentioned here.
Yeah.
Yeah. For some reason, I think that Ireland would be a sleeper of having a good time. I'd definitely be curious about Ireland, but I still would put London on the top of my list because I kind of think that Jack the Ripper walk and the London dungeons, if they're anything compared, because we went to the Tower of London and they have like all of these torture devices and things like that, but I think the London dungeons might be a step above.
I would completely go in a whole opposite direction of you guys, and of course Ireland would be, and I'm sorry, Yardley, I know it says Sam Hain, but you pronounce it Samhain. That's
okay.
I was like, Samhain.
My bad, Samhain.
No,
you should have jumped right in.
How the hell could you know that? It says, I used to say Sam Hain all the time, and then I actually looked it up, and it was like, oh, Samhain. Whoops. Anyway, yes, Ireland would be one of my very top ones. And oh my God, the Romanian Dracula castle. I would kill to do that. That would be freaking awesome. I'm obsessed with castles anyway. And then one from Vlad the Impaler. Holy shit, that would be amazing. Can you imagine doing that on Halloween? I'm adding that to my fucking bucket list right now. That would be epic for me. I would probably choose that over Ireland. That's how much I love it. And then I would love to go to Salem, Massachusetts, and, where all the witch trials happened. I've been to New Orleans, which, as you know, as you were there, Yardley, and we did go to the cemetery, and we got to see some pretty cool stuff, but, and I know usually Halloween on New Orleans is a big concert, so.
Yeah, Voodoo Fest.
Yeah.
It's actually happened this weekend, and it was St. Louis Cemetery that had Madame Laveau.
Yes.
That was one of the places we went.
Yeah. It would be cool to be in New Orleans, and I would probably, if I was to go for Halloween, I mean, I guess you could do many different things, and you could go to the concert, the Voodoo Fest, and then head out and do some other stuff. I would be interested in not just doing like that, but actually going and hitting the streets and looking at, going to the voodoo corridor. Don't they have like an actual area that specializes in voodoo and all that? I could be wrong, but
yeah. It's all over. I mean, a lot of if you branch out from the quarter and go outwards, there are things.
Yeah. I'd like to do that. I would, but I gotta say, Romania would be number one on my list. That for Halloween, that would be epic.
Well, it says that you can even spend the night in the medieval haunted castle in Transylvania, so that would probably be, be fun.
That would be. Isn't that Vlad the Impaler's castle, like the original Dracula, the dude that Dracula was written on? I mean, how freaking cool would that be? I can't even imagine. Yeah. I'd do that in a heartbeat. And it's supposed to be haunted, so even better. Done, and done. I'm going to add that one. So, all right. So now we got the top countries to destinations for Halloween, which, hey, I've been to like well, shit, last night was the third Halloween party I went to, fourth one coming on Tuesday. So I've been some pretty hardcore Halloween partying right here in Atlanta, but I'm willing to travel out and see some more stuff. I want to skip and head over to our haunted objects because we're kind of short on some time. I thought we were going to be like not having a lot to talk about, but apparently those are the times we actually have a lot to talk about, or the times that I don't think we have anything to talk about. I have this weird obsession with haunted things. I don't know if it's because I don't like dolls, and my mom decided at an early age that I was going to collect dolls. And so every time my parents went anywhere, or anytime a relative was like, what does Christy want for her birthday or Christmas? My mom would say, oh, she collects dolls. And I fucking hated dolls. And they weren't dolls like babies that you can hold and put in a stroller. They were those porcelain or collectible ones that are on stands, and you just sit them up on your shelf. And I hated it because I felt like they were watching me all the time. And what a wonderful day happened the day I trashed those fucking dolls. And when I was a kid, I used to have horrible nightmares, or sometimes I don't think all of them were nightmares. I think sometimes these things really happened to me because it was really fucked up. I used to have dreams that doll hands, when I was walking down the hall, were coming out of the walls trying to grab me. And then I actually, this was not a dream, would have red eyes looking at me from my closet. My closet was right across from my bed, and I would scream almost every night about red eyes in my closet. And they were blinking, they were looking at me and blinking, and I could see them, and it scared me horribly. And I would cry and I would pray, and with that, it was like I would look at those dolls like waiting for them to move, just waiting. And I still have nightmares about walking up to these dolls, which I didn't do this in real life. I was too scared, but walking up to these dolls and like grabbing them and just telling them to move, or blink or do something because I know you're going to, just do it, And like I, to this day, still have nightmares about this. And so I've always been kind of obsessed about the fact that there are actual artifacts out there that claim to be haunted, and they have receipts. It's not like, oh, this is haunted, and then everybody's like, well, I guess it's haunted then. I mean, there are actual receipts behind some of these objects, and I made a list of some of the top ones that I was interested in. And have you guys ever felt like or been around anything that you thought was haunted, or have you heard stories about anything on a personal level that was supposedly haunted? Yardley?
As far as an object like a doll or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
anything. Anything.
Not for me. You know what? I haven't necessarily heard of any stories. The only thing that I could say that was kind of traumatizing to me at the time wasn't necessarily a doll or an object that was in a room with me. It was when I was watching Poltergeist, that clown that the kid looked under the bed and then it wraps around. That kind of had me, kind of thrown into a loop a little bit. But outside of that, anything like this doll is haunted. I'm a guy. I'm like, the doll can fuck off. I'll throw it in the trash. The trash man comes to get it, threat averted. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But a lot of the females I know are the type that if they were to see a doll and it freaked them out, they would take the doll, they would put it in a chest, lock the chest, and then be up all night wondering about the doll to the chest. I just get rid of that shit and it's over. So that about sums it up for me.
What about you, Moni?
So this is a little bit like not just objects. For instance, I am an empath for the living, and I'm uncomfortable with that because I'm not a big religious person or a big woo-woo person. I try to be very practical the older I get. However, I kind of think that the empathicness with the living has possibly grown as a defense mechanism for some of the abuse that I went through growing up.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of, I needed to be very aware of people's emotions in my household to know whether I was going to be safe from moment to moment, without
totally understand exactly what you're saying. My mother's in a mental institution from a lifetime of untreated mental illness, and I know exactly what you're saying, and that's exactly right. You're absolutely right.
So as a child, it would be like I would have my bedroom door shut, but I could tell by the way that someone was walking or someone was breathing if they were unhappy. And I don't know if my empathic abilities grew from that to where I could kind of catch people's moods like the damn flu. All I know is that it affects me to this day it's getting, the more that I acknowledge that that's something that affects me, the more that the stronger it seems to get. So for instance, if I sit in a cubicle situation at work in between two people who are very negative, I will catch, I'm pretty much a happy person on my own, but I will catch negativity like the flu. I always do my best to kind of wake up in the morning, start with a good attitude, start at 0, and I come home exhausted and stressed and pissy. And it's not just from the day that I've had, but also
being around toxic people. Yeah, being around toxic people is exhausting. I understand 100% what you're saying. That's why I don't like going to Costco. I don't like going to Walmart. I don't like going to the mall. I avoid places with a lot of people because it's draining and exhausting to pick up on everybody's emotions around you. And that's why I love concerts and why I'm such a concert fanatic. I can be around a bunch of people, but I'm so into the music, and everybody else is too, that there's no room for focusing or even subconsciously on what anybody else is feeling or doing at the time. It's just music and enjoying the music. And that is why I don't go places. I shop online. I completely 100% understand what you're talking about.
For sure. And at any rate, somehow that has transferred over, and maybe sooner than when I actually started to acknowledge that this was something when I was younger and much more, maybe it was because I had more time or whatever it was, interested in the paranormal, to where I would actually go to cemeteries and seek out experiences, seek out opportunities to hopefully catch a spirit on my camera or whatever else. I learned that I basically catch that same kind of feeling from objects, or so it's pretty strong though. I used to work in a historical district, and I would walk around and actually start to feel ill, nauseous around certain buildings, and would do some historical research and find out that people had actually died in those buildings. I can actually get happy feelings from things. I have not had an experience with anything that's been like Evil Dead level shit where books are talking and or dolls are coming to life or whatever else, but there is a very old cemetery in Riverside, and it's not the safest place to be in a practical perspective because it's not a good area of Riverside. It's a very crappy neighborhood and, gangs and all that kind of stuff. And it doesn't have a fence around it. It's over 100 years old, this cemetery. But when I used to go there, now actually my husband won't even allow me. He won't go with me to places like this, because I would get there and I would stand in the middle of the cemetery, and if I just let myself be quiet for a minute, all of a sudden it would be like 100 different voices. And I mean this, and I know it sounds insane, and it felt insane even as it was happening, but 100 different voices were trying to talk to me all at the same time. And I would become overwhelmingly sad. And I've mentioned before, I'm not a big crier person. I actually try to avoid feelings, and it's in part because of stuff like this. I would start to cry like uncontrollably. And my husband would put me back in the car. And on our kind of lengthy drive back, I would actually pass out. This happened 2 to 3 times before we just stopped going, because there was one spirit named Rose that I felt like had a story that she needed to get out and just needed someone to be there for her. And so I kept coming back to kind of talk to her and try to just let her know that someone was listening or there for her, as crazy as that sounds now. But I would actually black out for a good portion of the ride home. And when I would wake up, I would be fine, like it never happened. But the exhaustion, it was just like they were feeding off of my energy to be able to tell their story. And then it would just use me all up. And it's kind of the same thing that happens to me with living souls, and kind of why it's difficult but important, I feel like, for me, like it's my calling or whatever, to serve, the underserved, the underprivileged, that I do in my day-to-day job right now. Is I serve a lot of homeless people, a lot of people that are looking for work, or have down on their luck stories. It exhausts me, but I feel like that's what I am here to do, because I have that ability to empathize and try to find answers and find resources for living people. I was attempting to do that for a while intentionally for people who had passed on through objects and through being around things like that. And so sometimes I can just be like hanging out somewhere with my kids and my family and not thinking about anything like that. And all of a sudden it's just like, oh, I'm overwhelmed. I'm actually dizzy, and I can't deny that I'm physically dizzy, and I have to just kind of push through the physical discomfort and nausea and try to ignore whatever it is that I'm feeling, because I'm like, sorry, I don't have time for your shit right now. I'm busy with my own kids and my own life.
Right.
But yeah, that's something that I don't really talk about much because of how crazy it sounds, and something that I definitely try to ignore. But it is something that has happened to me, and people have witnessed me like vomiting, crying, and blacking out with no alcohol involved on numerous occasions throughout my younger days, for sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you think about it, everybody wants to believe in haunted houses, but I mean, what is the difference between a haunted house or an actual object being haunted? I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, we're not reinventing the wheel here. It's all the same stuff. It's just, instead of a whole house, it's just one thing that you're getting.
My theory is, I don't even this is just my personal theory. I don't even necessarily believe the person has to be dead. And I don't necessarily believe that it has to be evil or even a traumatic event.
No.
I believe that the energy that we bring, if something extremely, amazingly happy were to happen to me right now in my room, like so amazing that it just couldn't be denied, like one of those life-changing, like things, like someone that I love dearly were to come up and propose to me in my bedroom or something right now, I feel like something like that could leave an impression that someone who had a strong enough empathic ability could, maybe 10 years later be looking to buy a house, and this house is on the market, and they come into this room and they feel a really happy feeling here, and they're like, oh, this might be the house for me because I get good vibes from it. Like, I just feel like the things that happen to us, and the same could be with like a rape or a traumatic event of someone who's still alive, if it happened in a certain place, could have left a mark, or an impression somewhere.
Yeah, I can agree with that on some levels. I think there's a book that really stuck with me. It's one of my favorite books, called The Mercy of Thin Air. And it starts because somebody passed, was kind of attached to a desk that somebody ends up buying. And the story goes from there. And it's an incredible story. It's so well written. And oh my gosh, at the end, you're like, no, whenever it all comes together. And but on top of that, I think things can be attached. Like, I think you can be attached to something, and when you go, maybe you didn't pass over, and you're where else, you're going to kind of follow something around while it goes from hand to hand. And then I think there are things that are actually haunted. And I want to get into a few of these really quick that have actual receipts that show there's a history from these objects. Things have happened, and a lot of death. I mean, there's a vase. It's a Bassano vase, and it was made in the 15th century from silver, and it's Italian, and it is got an insane history. It was made, apparently, this is the rumor, it was made for a bride in Italy as a wedding gift, and she was found on her wedding night on the floor dying, clutching the vase. And just before she died, she promised to return and seek her vengeance. And then, she died. Everybody's like, yeah, all right, lady. And so she passed, and the vase gets put, that's silver. It's pretty valuable. So it starts going handed down to different family members. All of them die. All of them, not just some of them, but every single family member that handled this vase died until
Yikes.
it was until it was finally thrown in a box and hidden because, what else can you do? It just was discovered in 1988, and inside of it was a note that said, "Beware, this vase brings death." Well, of course, everybody's like, yeah, all right. And they threw it away. They threw the note away and they kept the vase. And it was sold off to auction for $4 million. Okay. The buyer who bought it died 3 months after owning it. His family sold it to a surgeon who didn't believe in the curse, and he died 2 months later at 37 years old. It was sold again to an archaeologist who wanted it because of, its past, and it seems like this is something you got to get a hold of. He died 3 months later, and the family decided to sell it. But nobody really, after that point, wanted to buy it because they're thinking this thing's bad luck. But they did finally sell it. The next person died in only 1 month. And so I'm thinking something's going on with this vase. I don't know.
People should definitely get a clue by now.
Well,
You're right.
I don't know Yardley, if you were looking at this vase and it's at like a garage sale and everybody's like, everybody who's owned this vase has died, would you be like, oh, I don't want it? Or would you be like,
is that?
yeah,
Exactly. Oh, well, you cued me off. I'm not going to buy it.
I mean, would you be like, oh, what the fuck ever? Or this is going to look great on my living room table? Or would you be like, oh, well, then never mind and walk away? I mean, everybody's a skeptic,
Well, I mean, look, if I was there and it was like a yard sale or something and people were trying to get it off, I would probably be more likely to buy an 8-track player that was haunted than a vase. So I think I would probably
At least it's something
safe.
useful, right? I mean, if you're going to die, you're going to die listening to good music. Sheesh.
Exactly. And then I want to talk about the famous Annabelle, which I think it's funny because the real Annabelle doll is not the Annabelle doll in the movies. She's actually a fucking Raggedy Ann doll, which I was obsessed with Raggedy Ann when I was a kid. I was Raggedy Ann, fake ass, cheap ass costume in the 70s. I was a Raggedy Ann doll. And it's apparently, the Raggedy Ann doll is apparently possessed by the spirit of a girl named Annabelle who died in a fire. And so that's why it's called the Annabelle doll. I always thought it was just Annabelle was the name of the doll. And then I did my research and I'm like, wow, this is a Raggedy Ann doll. I had this doll, like not this one, but I had a Raggedy Ann doll that looked just like this. So talk about being creepy. The people that owned it in the 70s, she said, oh, you want to come into this doll and live in the, so the spirit did do this. And that's the whole story of it. And then one of her friends made fun of her and was like, that's not possible. And he woke up the next day strangled and scratched up. And the only thing in the room was the doll. And so they finally reached out to Ed and Lorraine Warren, which I freaking think they're amazing. They have so many books out, which when I was reading books a couple of years ago, I got hooked on all their books, all the stories. Holy shit, they've lived a life. Damn. I always wondered, because they've both passed now, like, I can't even imagine what they're doing in the afterlife. But, they discovered the doll was a conduit for demons, and they took it and put it in their museum, which they have a huge museum in their basement of their house for haunted objects. And I would love to go see it. Love to. So we all know about Annabelle, but, not very many people know that there's a lot of other things like this, around, like Robert the doll. Has anybody ever heard of Robert the doll?
Yeah, actually, I think he was on the, or his owner, and I think they might have brought him, was on Bizarre States. Shout out to my
Oh,
spirit
all
animal,
right.
Jessica
Yeah.
Chobot, who I'm sure is not listening and knows that I'm obsessed with her and probably thinks I'm creepy. But anyway, I think he was the one that his parents, I guess his owners, brought him, and they had a real specific protocol for how to handle him because he is so volatile that others are not allowed to touch him. Excuse me, are not allowed to touch him, and
Mm-hmm.
the way that you address him is a specific, and the way that they have to travel with him. Maybe it was a different haunted doll, but it was still really interesting that essentially you have to treat him like a volatile, evil child or something
Yeah.
that you don't know what he's going to do. And so you treat him with a certain level of respect and a certain like protocol for handling because you never know what's going to happen if you piss him off. And obviously he's not going to do it right in front of you. And
Right.
you're going to get home and you're going to wake up strangled and with scratches on you. So you never know.
As far as I know, and I know this says Florida. I'm pretty sure he's in Key West, Florida. He's in a glass case, and he was, I believe, was a gift to a little boy turning 4 years old in 1896, it says, by the Otto family. One of the servants got him a gift, a large doll in a sailor suit who was cursed. Robert named his doll Robert too, and no one thought anything of it until weird stuff started happening. People reported seeing Robert talking to the doll in dark rooms, giggling hysterically and often, and it'd be accompanied by a deep baritone voice. Anytime anything went missing or was smashed, the doll was blamed. Eventually, Robert the doll was placed in the attic, where he was seen moving from window to window. When a new family bought the house in 1976, the first person to find the doll ended up fainting with fright, saying the doll spoke to her and told her it was going to kill her. It was then donated to a Florida museum behind a glass window. Signs ask that before photographing, one should ask Robert's permission. There are also letters attached to the glass from people who didn't ask and are now questing to be released from the curse.
Oh, yeah, no.
That gave me the chills, man. Really? And
Although this is where me and that woman who said that it threatened to kill her differ, and I'm more like that character from that, what was it, the Housebound movie that we watched, the main character.
Right.
Because the minute, yes, the minute that thing is like, I'm going to kill you, I'm like, not if I kill you first, motherfucker. Yeah. Like, I would have broken that thing's neck for speaking to me that way. No, thank you.
Yeah,
exactly.
I totally agree, but I think I find it interesting that there's got to be scary. Like, I don't know if, and then what do? You get rid of it or you burn it, and then the spirit's released, and then where does it go? It's gone somewhere, or you throw it away and somebody else finds it or something, like, I don't know. I gotta say,
it would be a nice gift for someone you don't like is what I think.
Yeah. Another one that I find super interesting is the woman from Lem's statue. I had never heard of this one before until I started doing research for this show. This one is probably on the top of haunted objects. The statue was recovered in 1878, and they guesstimate that it was carved around 3500 BC. No one knows what the statue is supposed to be. It looks kind of weird, like a female penis. I don't know really what else you could say about it. It's weird. Like, they assume and they say and claim she's a goddess, a female goddess, and apparently not a very nice one. At first, they said that the statue was possessed by a lord who perished with his 6 family members under mysterious circumstances over the next 6 years. The last remaining family member sold it and was purchased by a man, and within 4 years, his entire family died as well. As a total of two more owners and their families lost their lives due to the statue until it was donated to the Royal Scottish Museum in Edinburgh, where the man who handled the statue put it in a glass case and died within a year. Now, as of this day, nobody else has touched it since.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Let's limit our opportunities to die. Thanks.
Every single person noted in these families that touched it died. Like, that's not, I mean, that's not just like a story. Like, that shit happened. That's crazy. Like, how could it not be cursed? I don't know. What do you think, Yardley? What do you think of all this crazy nonsense?
Okay, first of all, first of all, you're going to have to cut this part out of the show because I was totally distracted the whole time that you were talking.
Oh, nice.
I am sorry. It's totally on me.
Are you watching football?
No, actually, I'm not. I was actually reading an article, and that one's on me. Very unpodcast etiquette like of myself.
But called you out.
Yeah, I kind of got lost in this thing, but go ahead. Well, actually, I do have something to contribute to what I don't know that you just said. If it was the link, there was a link that you had in the show notes. I actually clicked on it and it was saying that I couldn't read the article because of my ad blocker. So I guess I kind of have an excuse to have gotten lost in the other article.
Got you. Well, all right, Moni, what do you think about this last one that we discussed, the Women from Limb statue? Like,
well, this is just fresh in my mind because it's an issue I don't know if y'all have heard of that's happening out here in San Diego County that we're very much struggling with. Hepatitis A outbreak. And I'm not saying it was Hep A back then, but I'm just saying that maybe this thing just needs a good antibacterial, like bleach washing. Maybe it's just got a disease and it's being wrongfully diagnosed with demonism when it's really just some kind of disease that people are catching on contact.
An ancient disease that was around in 3500 BC, but now we don't have the antibodies to fight off. Is that what you're?
Yeah, see, because we're become a wussified society. I know you disagree, but maybe we're a bunch of snowflakes that don't have immunity to whatever superbug that this thing might have, and maybe she's got mold on her. I mean, we don't know.
Mold. Oh my God. All right, you two. I'm gonna believe that there are just a few things out there that are fucked up and haunted and are haunted by probably things that aren't very nice and would like to kill everything it comes into contact with. I mean, hell, why not? Why not believe it? I do. I believe it. So I don't think that happens to every object around the world. I think there's just a few out there that, I mean, shit. You're literally, these things are in a museum and people are afraid to touch them. And these are scientists. Like, if they're scared to touch them, I'm just going to go ahead and give them the knowledge and say, yeah, I'm not going to either. Why even give it a try? No way. No.
I think for me, if something's going to make me feel or make people feel some kind of way about a place or an object, I am more likely to believe if there is an area, let's just say a battle took place somewhere where thousands of people died. Mm-hmm. I would probably be more inclined to feel something being in a place where I know a big event happened that changed a lot of people's lives, as opposed to seeing a doll and somebody saying that it was haunted. I think I would just feel a different type of way. Mm-hmm. Not saying that, other objects can't, make people feel some type of way, but I just think where a big event happened, that it was traumatic and something that the effects of that event might even be felt, today. For me, I would probably be more, I don't know, my senses would be more in tuned to that event as opposed to, something that you could just throw in the garbage.
Yeah, that's true. I think, like you said, when you say, we're just going to get rid of it, like, my fear is you throw it in the garbage and somebody finds it, like, what happens with them? I guess I worry about that. But I think just like a haunted, like you said, battleground where several people died, can turn into a place that, is haunted due to the fact that so many people died there. Whereas maybe something that somebody died next to an object in a very, very traumatizing way could cause this one thing to be haunted. You know, who knows? I mean, it's, you know, it's all out there. It's all mysterious. We're all, you know, just trying to toot along, figuring this shit out. And then once we die, we'll you know, it'll all become clear. But I really am fascinated with things being haunted, just because as a kid, I was terrified of certain things for no reason at all. And so then I'm thinking, maybe there's something out there. Maybe there is something to this. I don't know. But anyway, I want to wrap this up with this crazy statistic that I read that I think can wrap up our Halloween edition of Creepin Real. And that is, this year, in the year 2017, Americans are expected to spend over $15 billion on Halloween. We're talking costumes, decorations, candy, the whole spiel.
That's not surprising at all.
I think it's fantastic. It's skyrocketed in the last 10 years. And so that kind of shows you where we are as far as our, you know, how we feel about Halloween. Every family is averaged to spend $169.
Well, yeah, but also think about it like this. A lot of this, you know, as time goes on, you always have to one up what you did, you know, the year before. And that's where they get you, because I think a lot of those billions aren't necessarily coming from parents getting things for their kids. It's for grown ass people trying to be the best, you know, the best person with the best, you know, Halloween costume. So I don't know. What do you think, Moni?
I think it's crazy. You know, here's the thing. If I thought that number was just going up for Halloween, I'd be all about it, because Halloween's an awesome holiday. But knowing that every year we're spending more on Christmas and we're spending more on all these, because I'm going to get on my soapbox, because consumerism, they're pushing it down our throats. So if we just got to spend money that we're not necessarily making, don't even get me started. But that being said, costumes are expensive. And I feel this not only at Halloween time, but when I want to go to the different cons that I attend throughout the year and I want to dress in some really super cool costume, I don't necessarily have time or talent. I'm just going to admit it. I don't have talent. I'm not going to make a costume that's worth a damn. And I can't afford to buy $100 or $200 costume just for me, and then also my husband, and now also my kids. Mm-hmm. And it's crazy. And I mean, I went to buy candy, and this was the first year, you know, we're going to be laid off. Everybody at the library is going to be laid off in a couple of months here. We received official word. So we're tightening our belts around my house. And candy, one bag of candy was $15 this year. So This is the first year that I purchased and that was at Walmart. This is the first year that I purchased candy and didn't do that thing that we all do where we eat all of the candy and have to go buy some more before Halloween, because I don't have another $15 to buy a bag of candy. That's freaking ridiculous. Like, stop. And my kid has, like 15 princess dresses that Santa brought her that were gently used from a Facebook exchange sale last year. Mm-hmm. So I put my foot down and I was just like, you know, because there's no one thing that she's in love with as far as consistent about what she wanted to be, I was like, you know what? You're just going to either pick one of your costumes or make a mix of a couple, because you've got plenty of stuff. You don't need any more stuff. And I have some epic costumes that I've used in the past. And that's the other thing. You wear these things once for $100 and then they go into storage and then you do it all over again the next year. And it's just crazy pants. Yeah. So I'm going with my borrowed yellow rain slicker as Georgie, and that's going to be that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this year we went a little overboard because we got invited to so many Halloween costume parties. You know, Rick and I dressed up as a couple's costume, which I've never done before. So this was like so exciting for me. I've never done a couple's costume, and I've always wanted to go as Mia Wallace and Vincent Vega from Pulp Fiction. And so we did that this year. And we
You
spent.
looked awesome, by the way.
Thank you. We spent a little more than what we would normally spend on costumes. My husband is turning into his dad and actually collects costumes just to fuck with people all through the year. So his dad is the same way. So he has that one. He has the Vincent Vega one. He has a Stay Puft Marshmallow Man one. You know, the ones that inflate. So you're inside like a giant inflatable.
I love the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. He's so cute.
He has a Top Gun Maverick costume. He has, a new one we have this year of Trump giving him a piggyback ride. I insisted him ordering. I was like, even if we don't use it this year, you have to have this. And he did get it. So our kids, you know, Madeline, like I said, she dressed up last night. She went on a date, God help us. And they went to a church with like costume party, and she dressed up as a quote unquote 70s girl. That consisted of my bell bottoms and a top of mine because that's like how I dress all the time. I'm like the 70s person. So it wasn't hard for her. And then we did get Jay a costume because he's super into it now. But back when my kids were your age, Moni, same thing. These kids, they're not going to remember shit. You know, when they're babies, I bought them cute costumes because they're babies and it's so adorable. But then when they hit that toddler age, it's like, throw something together, you know? I mean, hello. Yeah. It doesn't matter. Like you said, my child had tons of princess costumes. My son had police costumes and firefighter costumes just for fun. So, of course, you know, put that thing on. We're not going to spend money on that. But I agree. I think it's pretty crazy. We totally went over that this year. But it was the first time that him and I have really ever dressed up, especially together. So it was exciting. I'm happy that if we're going to spend money on a holiday, it's Halloween and not
that for
Valentine's
sure. Yeah.
Day.
Oh,
I think
fuck a bunch
stupid.
of Valentine's Day. Yeah.
I think Easter, which Jesus rose from the grave, that's awesome. Why the fuck does a bunny need to be involved and bring candy and gifts?
Yeah.
Let's think about that.
Because we need to spend more money. That's why.
Exactly. Let's think of more reasons to spend money on our kids. I'm all for, you know, Mother's Day and Father's Day. But the rest of this crap, and you know, my daughter and I were walking down Target the other day and they had a huge display of Halloween cards. And I'm like, who the fuck gives a hat card on Halloween? And she's like, I know, right? Happy Halloween. Love me. Really? You need to give them a card? Stupid. So there are things I love about it, and there's things I wish we could just erase, like shit like that. Like, let's have a good time. Let's scare the crap out of each other. Let's have parties. Let's send our kids off trick-or-treating. But everything else is ridiculous. I mean, come on, let's be honest. So anyway, with that, Yardley, you have anything else to add to this insaneness?
No, I'm good. I just hope, and I'm actually ready to see some more of your killer Halloween picks. And you know what? As we get older, I think we're also able to appreciate things like Halloween and look back to the times where we had a lot of fun. And I guess in the case of both of you, it's kind of fun to kind of watch that experience from someone else. So It's been pretty cool. So it's always fun talking to you ladies, and I look forward to next week.
I'm excited. Who's in charge next week? Is that you, Moni?
I mean, I wouldn't get crazy with the in charge, but yes, I will be trying to tepidly keep this ship from sinking for sure.
Totally in charge.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited. My ship sinks every time, but I'm okay with that. I own it. I'd like to thank you guys for joining us. And Yardley, would you like to give out your social media presence?
Absolutely. You can follow me on Twitter at militant_marker.
All right. Moni, what about you?
Instagram at Moni Bear, MoniBarre, and Twitter at Rebel Moni with an MONY. And I actually tweeted this week because I was like, if I'm going to be saying that you should follow me on Twitter, I should tweet sometimes. So you should reward me for that by coming and following me over there.
Yay. All right. we have a Facebook page, The Creepin' It Real Show. And we also have Instagram, The Creepin' It Real Show. I am Creepin Christy on Instagram, and on Twitter, I'm heading the main account, which is at Creepin_it, or you can look us up under Creepin' It Real Show. Super easy. Thank you both so much for, we had to reschedule a couple of times. It's been a crazy week for everybody. So thank you guys so much for working through it. And this Sunday wasn't too bad. I got my Bloody Mary and I made it through. So, well, you know, now that means I have to actually do more shit in the morning times because I've proved to myself that I can do shit in the mornings. So thanks a lot. Y'all have ruined it.
Too easy.
Anyway, all right. Happy Halloween, everybody. And we will see you on the flip side.
Bye.